Welcome to 𝗬𝗧. I am Madhuri Mathur, Assistant Professor in English and Head Department of Languages at 𝗵𝗁𝗺 College, 𝗧𝗦𝗃 सिकंदराबाद. I have with me my colleague today, Mrs. V. Lakshmi. She is also an Assistant Professor at 𝗵𝗁𝗺 College. Today, under the Gurukula Udyoga guide, we are going to discuss here paper 3 of English, which is titled Language and Literature. Now, this paper is meant for TGT, PGT and also for JL. So, we are going to discuss it as two parts. Part A is language and part B is literature. The paper consists of 100 questions. Each question carries 1 mark and there is negative marking of 1/4. When you look at the question paper, you will find 50 questions on the first part, that is language, and 50 questions on literature. So now I request my colleague, Mrs. V. Lakshmi, to take over and discuss part A of this paper.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lakshmi, working as Assistant Professor in 𝗵𝗁𝗺 College. Today, I would like to discuss English language as part of Gurukula Udyoga guide, paper 3, English language and literature. As part of this paper 3, I am going to discuss part A. Part A consists of this paper consists of 100 marks paper. This 100 marks paper is divided into 50 plus 50. 50 marks for language and 50 marks for literature. Coming to the language, you are given 50 marks for this paper. Each question carries 1 mark. Also, if you are going to give a wrong answer, there will be a negative mark. 1/4 of negative mark will be given if you give a wrong answer. Here, I would like to emphasize one thing. If you give 4 wrong answers, your 1 mark will be deducted. So, you need to be very careful while writing the answer. Coming to the syllabus of this particular paper, for the 50 marks, we have 4 divisions we have to divide it. The first one is reading comprehension and of an unseen passage, and the second module under this is grammar and vocabulary. Third module under this is phonetics. Fourth module under this is punctuation. So, let us discuss each topic in detail. Reading comprehension, whenever it comes to the reading comprehension, you will be given 3 unseen passages to you. Among these 3 unseen passages, first unseen passage will be given 3 questions. Second unseen passage, sometimes it will be given 3, or else the other one will be at the 4 marks. So, a total reading comprehension of unseen passage total gives for 10 marks. 10 marks will be allotted. 10 marks will be allotted for reading comprehension. First unseen passage, as I said, whatsoever the passage is it, we need to be careful in listening or writing it to it. Coming to the first topic, reading comprehension, you will be given unseen passage. So, you are not, each question, as I said, each question will be given only 1 minute time approximately, because this paper is for 2 hours, each hour 60 minutes. For this approximately, we need to allot 1 minute per 1 question. To make this comprehension, to make the answers of this comprehension well, we need to remember few things. First, you have to read the passage and find out what is the main idea. Also, look for the details and then go with the inference, find the meaning of it. Comprehension, find the meaning of it and then you answer the question. So, first, see, this is an example passage given to you here. You will be given the same way in the question paper and you will be asked to answer 3 or 4 questions based on this. So, if you can read this passage, you can identify, first you need to identify what is the main idea of this particular paragraph. So, once you have to go with the questions. The questions will be given in this way. What fascinated John on the clear evening? So here we have to search, we need to search for where the marking is, where is it the clear evening is. So here if you can see around by the sky, see here we have the right word. So based on the using the technique of scanning, you can find the clear evening and you can find the answer here somewhere else. So once you can read this particular detail, you will be able to answer the question, what fascinated John on the clear evening? It is the night sky. It is not the city lights, it is not the bright object, also it is not the shooting stars. There is some information given about shooting stars that you have to find out when the question is given. Coming to the next question, what did John see moving across the horizon? So here if you can go back and check the passage, you have to go with the word of where you can find the horizon. So here if you can see where is the horizon for us here, across the horizon, what is the here? So here in these two lines you will be able to find the answer, because if you read in detail and you check every word meaning and to answer, that takes little time. As this is the examination, we are time bounded, we need to use the technique of scanning. Here in these two particular lines you can find the answer, which one is correct. You have to go with that, the bright object. Coming to the next question, why did John make a wish after seeing the bright object? So why did he make a wish? Then again you can go to the paragraph and you can see after making his wish. Here we have a word or we have a phrase here. By looking at this particular phrase, we can find the answer in these two lines. After making wish, he continued to express the light, the bright sky, and the right answer is that he had read about shooting stars granting wishes. Here they are asking why John make a wish, why did he make a wish when he saw a bright object. You have to read the question thorough and find the answer based on using the technique of scanning. So once you find it, it will be easy for you. Now going to the next component, what did John do after making his wish? What did John do after making his wish? He continued to explore the night sky. He went back home. No, he did not do it. He tried to catch the bright object. He didn't do it. And he shared his wish with a friend. No, he didn't do it. He continued to explore the night sky. This is how you can answer the reading comprehension questions with lesser time. The next component, that is under grammar and vocabulary, we have parts of speech. It starts with the parts of speech. Do remember, I am telling you again, I am stressing you again, reading comprehension consists of 10 marks. So while answering the question, be little careful. Here I would also like to emphasize that under reading comprehension, sometimes it also happens you to give the meaning or write the synonym of a particular word. If the same thing is given, if you do not know the answer of the particular word, then you have to find using the clue. Based on this situation, what answer you can find, the near one, the near meaning of that particular word, you can say and you can speak according. Then the next one under grammar and vocabulary is parts of speech. So first, how many parts of speech we have, you need to know. We have 8 parts of speech: noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction and interjection. Noun talks about the names of a person, place, thing and animal, as you all know this. Pronoun we use in place of noun. Verb, all the action words are called verb. Adjectives are the ones which are used to describe the noun, we call them as adjective. Adverb are the ones which describes the verbs. Preposition is a word which gives the position of a noun. Conjunction is a word which joins 2 clauses, 2 words or else 2 sentences. Interjection is the one which talks about the sudden feelings, the exclamatory feelings like oh, ouch, alas and all. Already you know this. One we have to do remember, because on this parts of speech you will be given 1 mark for this. You will be given 1 mark for this. The question in your question paper will be in such a way that you can find 2 kinds of questions based on this parts of speech. Sometimes they will give you a sentence and they will ask you to identify the word in the sentence, parts of speech of that particular word which has been underlined. Suppose if you can see the question, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Here jumped is underlined. So jumped is a verb which has been used in the past tense form. So you need to identify it's a verb, because it's not the name of a person or the animal. Also it is not describing that particular animal, and it is not telling the position of it. So it is telling the action what the animal did. So it is the right option is verb. Coming to the other way of asking the questions on this is, here they can give the match the following. You can give it. A set of words are given to you under column A and set of words are given to you under column B. Column A and column B you need to match it. Suppose if you can see, the first one is allow, and this words develop and surprisingly. If you can see develop, where it is matching, so it is little confused, and if we do not know what kind of parts of speech is it, we have under the second column adjective, verb, adverb and noun, and then conjunction. So we do not know what this particular words parts of speech is. Then even the second one also you don't have any clue. In that case, do not worry at all. Just go with the word which you know it, which you know the parts of speech of this. Suppose if you can see the third one, develop. As we know, develop is a verb. So you find out where this verb is. So here develop, you can see the option 2 is the right option. So you find here in the given options, for 3, what is the right option? 2 is given. How many chances, how many options is given? Option 2 as a right answer. Here these 3 are given. Whereas in the fourth option you don't have. So this particular option you can eliminate, and you have only 3 choices here. And then you go with the next word, surprisingly. Apart from this word, you can find any other word and its parts of speech. Surprisingly, this is an adverb. So we know this, the right option for 4 is 3, and identify here where the right option is given and 4 is 3. So these 2 are matching. You just check if there is any other word wherein C and D are matching. Wherein if you can see in the option 1 and option 3 is not at all matching, whereas the option 2 is the right option. That is how you can choose the match the following words if they are given in parts of speech. The next topic we have is subject and predicate. What is subject and what is predicate? First you have to know. Based on this particular topic, you will be given a questions. 2 kinds of questions will be given. One is that identify the subject, or else add the predicate to the subject. So what is the subject here? In any sentence is a combination of subject and predicate. The subject, the nouns of a particular sentence is called a subject. So here the sun shines brightly. If you take the example of this, here the sun is the subject of it and shines brightly. What action does this sun is doing? Is shining brightly. So this is called as our predicate. So based on this, as I said, we will be given 2 questions. So first a sentence will be given to us. Based on this, in this particular sentence, we need to identify the subject. The cat chased the mouse. Here, what is the subject here? The cat is the subject. So subject is the cat. Chase the mouse is the action done by the subject. So it is not. What did we they asked us to identify the subject. That's the reason we are finding only subject. Chase the mouse is a verb. The mouse is a object of this, and the cat chased is the action done by it. So the right option is here is the cat. That is how you need to check. Then the other kind of question which you can see in the question paper is combine the following sentence fragments to form a complete sentence with a subject and predicate. Here they didn't give a predicate to us, they gave only the dog barked. The subject is given and barked, the action is given, but not how is it barked, slow, loud, has not given. So we can add that and we can complete the sentence of it. If you can see the other options, the dog is not at all is a complete sentence with subject and predicate. So you can eliminate this option. The dog loudly barked, but here this is not in the correct formation of the sentence. So this also you can. Barked loudly is only predicate is given, but here if you can see the dog barked loudly. How did, this is the subject and this is the predicate which is given to us, and how did it completed the action is also given to us. So this could be the right answer. The next topic under grammar is types of sentences. Here we need to be little careful because in identifying the sentences. As we all know, we have 4 kinds of sentences. One is declarative sentence, the other one is interrogative sentence, imperative sentence and exclamatory sentence. We all knew this. What is a declarative sentence? Declarative sentence all the time it ends with a full stop or a period. And the interrogative sentences, the questions which we frame is called interrogative sentences. And imperative sentences, the command or the orders what we do or what we speak, all this or comes under imperative sentences. Imperative sentence also ends with a full stop. Exclamatory sentences like the sudden feelings or the expressions, sudden expressions comes under exclamatory sentences. What a beautiful scene, what a beautiful book. So these are all, at the end of this sentence we have to use the exclamatory mark. So here based on this types of sentences, based on the aspects we have the sentences, types of sentences: simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, compound complex sentence. Simple sentences contain one independent clause, whereas compound sentences contain 2 independent clauses are joined with a word, and whereas the third one, complex sentence, contains 1 independent and 1 dependent clause. Complex compound sentences is a combination of 1 independent and 2 dependent clauses. Here based on this you will be asked 2 kinds of questions. First thing is that they can give you a sentence and they'll ask you to convert. Suppose declarative sentence is given and they'll ask you to convert it into interrogative. See here, for us they gave the declarative sentence, she is reading a book, and they asked us to convert this particular sentence into a question. So is she reading a book? She is reading a book is not at all a interrogative sentence. She is reading a book, no, this is also not at all interrogative sentence. Is she, when we start with the auxiliary verb and she is reading a book, is she reading a book? So we have the answer yes or no. But whereas for the other options there is no scope. So is she reading the book is the right option for this. Then we have, we can ask the question in such a way that sometimes they'll ask you to, they give the simple sentences and they'll ask you to convert it into compound. Sometimes compound sentences will be given and will be asked us to write it in simple sentence or complex sentence. Vice versa, this happens. This is the question which has been asked in the 2017 paper. Coming to the conjunctions. Conjunctions are the part of words. These are the words which comes under parts of speech. These are the words that link 2 different parts of a sentences together. They help continuing the relation between words, phrases and clauses. So we have types of conjunctions. One is coordinating conjunction, the other one is subordinating conjunctions and correlative conjunction. As I said, conjunctions are the words which joins 2 clauses or 2 words. Most of the times it is asked us either to join 2 sentences. In many examinations they give 2 sentences to us and they'll ask us to join these sentences using right conjunction. So we can see the example here. The example is that he wants to go to the party, he is feeling unwell. He wants to go to the party but he is feeling unwell, so he couldn't go, that's the reason. So we have to identify which conjunction suits there, because is always talks about the reason, so always gives the explanation and always joins it. But here we are giving why he is not able to attend the party, because he is not feeling well, but he is not feeling well. That's the reason the conjunction but suits here. Another component here is verbs. We need to speak on verbs. Verbs, as you know that the action words are called verbs. Verbs we have two kinds, regular and irregular verbs. What are called regular verbs? Regular verbs are the ones, the past tense form of these regular verbs ends with ed or en. So these are called regular verbs. Suppose you can take walk is a word, that is a verb, is an action word, and walked is the past tense form of it. Coming to the irregular verbs never have the same, the common or which never ends with ed, and it has some separate word. For example, you can take the word go. Go, and the past tense form of this go is went. Nowhere it is started with go and added ed. So these kinds of verbs is called irregular verbs. Apart from this regular, irregular verbs, we have auxiliary verbs and modal verbs. We have around 19 modal verbs. Those also depends upon present and past. Can, will, shall, may, all this comes under modal verbs, as you all know the list of it. When it comes to the past tense or by the mood of the person or by the mood of the sentence, it gets changed. Can becomes could, may becomes might, shall becomes should, will becomes would. So based on this, you can see one question based on these verbs, whether they are regular or irregular. They'll ask you to identify the verb in the sentence. Sing, base form, and the past participle form of it, as sing is a base form, is a present form of the verb. So what is the past participle? Whether we have to say, we never listened it as a singed, so that's a wrong option. We never listened it as a sang. Sang is also not the this one. So the right option, the past participle they asked. They didn't ask simply the past. If they asked simply the past, then we can give the option sang. But they didn't ask us to give the past form. They ask us to write the past participle form of it. As this comes under irregular verb, this is sung is the right option. See why I am stressing and reading the question careful, because each question, if you give a wrong answer, 1/4 mark of 1/4 mark will be deducted. If you make little wrong and reading the question, your mark will be deducted. As you know, once the mark will be deducted, your rank either goes high or comes down. So you need to be very careful while answering. First you need to be careful on reading the question. Please do read the question and then understand, then answer the option. The next component under grammar is tense and time. As we all know, we have been listening present tense, past tense and future tense. Under present tense, we have 4 kinds: simple present, present continuous, present perfect and present perfect continuous. Simple present tense talks about the habits and the regular action. Present continuous talks about when you are while speaking, if the action is being continuing, that talks about present continuous. Past perfect talks about by the time of you speak, if the action is completed, but that has some relevance in the present, then you give the present perfect sentence. Present perfect continuous sentence. Present perfect continuous sentence talks about if you started the action somewhere else, the action has started and it has ended at some time, but it has been continuing in the present, then you can use the present perfect tense. Coming to the past tense, the work which is completed by the time of speaking comes under simple past tense. Past continuous, the action has started sometime in the past and continued sometime in the past, which has continued certain time in the past, that comes under past continuous tense. Past perfect tense. Past perfect tense talks about the action which has completed at a certain time in the past. Past perfect continuous, it has the action has started sometime in the past and it has continued for some time and it has completed just by the time of speaking. Then we use past perfect continuous tense. We have the other one is future tense. So one is simple future tense, future continuous, future perfect and future perfect continuous. When you know that some action is going to be happen in the future, then you can take the simple future tense. Future continuous always talks that future will be like this time of action sometime in the future. If it is going to be, then it goes with the future continuous tense. Future perfect tense talks about when you assume something, some action will take place in the future. By the time you go or you reach, then you use future perfect tense. And future perfect continuous tense talks about by the time, like you are expecting some action and you know that when that action would complete in the future, at that time the future perfect tense you can use. Coming here, the simple technique is always you have to check with the verb in the simple present tense. Always the verb either ends with the base form or sometimes it ends with the s form. Continuous tense, you have to see if it is a plural, you can see are or ing form of a verb. If it is a singular, is and ing form of a verb. Perfect tense, singular, has and participle form of a verb. Here perfect continuous, have plus been if it is plural and ing form of a verb. Here also the same as it is like the auxiliary verbs as we know that. So here for the simple past we use past form of the verb, and here we have the verse and reading if it is singular, and perfect tense always we'll get one auxiliary verb, that is had. And here had been we have to use whether it is a singular or plural. Always here in the singular future tense, simple future tense, whether it is a singular or plural, the verb will be joined with will, and then it is a will be, and then have completed will have completed for the future perfect. Future perfect continuous, will have been continued. So the questions will be in this way. Choose the correct answer to complete the sentence. I dash my friends yesterday. I met my friends yesterday, because talking about past action. Okay, so this is how they ask you to identify the tense or else identify the verb. Next, the other one is here, this is how they can also ask. They will give you the sentence and they will ask you to write it in future. If they can give in a simple present tense, and they will ask you to write it in a future. Suppose if you can see, she finishes her work on time. It's in simple future. They asked us to write it in future tense. So this is how she will finish, because future tense always the verb continues with a will. So it is she will finish, you have to. The other component is preposition. Preposition, as we know that this is a word which talks about the position of a noun. So we have prepositions which talks about location, which talks about direction, which talks about time, which talks about relationship. So most of the time a sentence will be given to you wherein they miss the preposition, and they'll ask you to complete the prepositions according to the sentence. The product you have sent us does not conform to the specific behavior or specific order. So it is like to and of or the right options. So the adverbs, next comes with the adverbs. Adverbs also gives 1 mark. What is an adverb? Adverb which describes the verb. We have kinds of adverb: adverb of manner, adverb of time, adverb of place, adverb of frequency, and adverb of degree. So based on that we have to go and work on with the adverbs. How frequently the verb has been, the verb take the action, how often the verb take the action. So based on this we have to identify. Based on the adverb, adding to the adverbs we have other component, adjectives. Adjectives sometimes either adjectives or adverbs takes place in the question paper, so it will be given 1 mark. As you all know that adjectives are the ones which describes the noun. The other component here we will definitely know is that articles. Articles are the ones, we have two kinds. These articles all the time, it demonstrates that what kind of noun, what is a noun, whether it is a singular, plural or whatever is it. We have two kinds of noun. All these articles come before the noun. One is a definite article and the other one is indefinite article. The is considered as definite article, a and an is considered as indefinite article. A comes always with the consonant sound. When the noun is starting with the consonant sound, we have to use the indefinite article a. When the noun is starting with a vowel sound, we have to use the indefinite article an. So do remember, these articles sometimes acts as an adjectives also. So we have to, while reading the question, we need to be very careful which sentence has the correct use of article. Here if they ask us the correct use of article is fine, or which sentence has the correct use of sometimes they'll ask us to find out whether it is this which word is acting as an adjective, then also we need to be very careful. Which sentence has the correct use of article? I need an umbrella today, because the coffee is uncountable noun, we never use any article before. Sun rises in the east, the east should come, because all the directions the should come. Okay, so the option 2 is the right option. And we have another component, voice, active and passive voice. So here they'll ask us to change active. Here voice is that active voice, subject, verb and object. Subject is the, here subject performs the action and object receives the action here. So during the examination they'll ask us to convert the sentence into active to passive or else passive to active. Here you have an example. They built a new bridge. A new bridge was built by them. The another component we have it here is direct and indirect speech. So direct and indirect speech also they ask us. What is direct? When we are conveying our ideas directly to somebody, so that comes under direct. When somebody else is giving someone else decision or someone else opinion, then that comes under indirect speech. So based on this we will be given a questions like this. They'll give us direct sentence and they'll ask us to change it into indirect. This is how you can see. And the other component we have is infinitives, gerunds and participles. Then this phrasal verbs, idioms, framing questions, all this comes under phrasal verbs, idioms and framing questions, all this comes under vocabulary. For this vocabulary you will be allotted 6 marks approximately in the paper. So for framing questions, as you know that phrasal verbs and idioms which have a separate meaning than its usual meaning, that we have to learn from the uses of during the uses of languages. Framing the questions, all the time we know it how to frame a question. Mostly the framing questions, the word starts with WH and HW. There is another one is question tags. Question tag always, if the question is positive, tag should be negative. If the question is negative, tag should be positive. That way you can check how to give the question tags. Here they ask us to add a question tag. Suppose you can see, will they be arriving late? So this is will they. The other component under vocabulary is synonyms, antonyms, homonyms and homophones. This we already know it very well. As I said, proverbs and one-word substitutes, we have to learn them by using the language only. The other component, verbal, consonant, sounds and phonemes. This is very important because this carries 5 marks. 5 bits will be given to us based on this. If you are able to know all these 44 sounds, like these 24 consonant sounds and the monophthongs, all these monophthongs, 12 monophthongs and 8 diphthongs, if you are able to know, you can answer all the 5 questions very easy. They ask you to identify the sound, they ask you to whether it is, see one question in the previous paper it has given, a diphthong is also called. A diphthong is also called vowel glide because diphthongs, these are called diphthongs, combination of 2 vowels, monophthong. So here a vowel, the voice glides from one place to another. And we have another one here is stress and intonation. The word stress, if you are giving a prominent pressure on a particular word, is called word stress. You are giving a particular some pressure at some particular part of a sentence is called sentence stress. The other part here we have to learn under this phonetics is intonation. The rise and fall in your pitch is called intonation. We have patterns of intonation: raising, falling tone and raising tone. These are the intonations. We have 4 specific intonations we have it. The other major component here is punctuation. This also carries 5 marks. So all these we know it. We have various kinds of punctuation: period, question mark, exclamatory mark, comma, semicolon, colon, question marks, apostrophe, hyphen, dash, parenthesis, brackets, and all this slash. All these are punctuation. Recent times emoticons and emojis are also added, but this comes under informal language. Coming to the punctuation, they'll give you the sentence and they'll ask you to find out whether it is punctuated proper or not. If you can observe in other sentences, this punctuation here, another sentences the period is given after, or somewhere else they miss the punctuation, whereas the first sentence is the right option here and the question. So you need to be very careful whether they kept question mark, period or so. Now I request Mrs. Madhuri Mathur ma'am to go with the literature concept as part of part B.
Right. Right, so now we are going to take a look at part B of this paper, which is on literature. Now you know that the syllabus of this section is vast. The first section here is comprehension of an unseen passage. There are 2 comprehension passages given. One is a literary prose passage and the other is a poem. The second section here is the study of literary forms. Under this we have poetry. Now poetry, again there are several forms of poetry which are included here. We have the sonnet, the ode, the elegy, ballad, lyric and dramatic monologue. Then next we have prose. Now under prose we have 3 forms of prose given to us: drama, fiction and essay. If you look at the syllabus closely, it mentions that you need to be aware of English literature from 1798 to 1900. And there is also a long list of literary works which is given there. There are 18 poems, 14 prose and 6 plays which are mentioned in the syllabus. Now since this is such a vast syllabus, we are going to only take an overview of the syllabus and maybe look at some of the tips on how to prepare these things. It is not possible to go into everything in detail, but I will try to give you some tips on how to prepare this for your exam. So this is a sample of a comprehension passage, a literary prose passage which is given for comprehension. The question is framed like: read the given passage and answer the questions that follow. So 5 questions are asked on the literary prose passage. Now here again, as you have already been told about the the technique of scanning and skimming, these 2 techniques are going to be very helpful. Read the passage carefully, quickly once to try and understand what is the theme of the passage. Then maybe another quick reading to look at the details which are given in the passage. Take a look at the questions, what specific questions have been asked, and look for that specific information in the passage. So a proper reading, a careful reading and a proper understanding of the passage is very important to be able to answer any questions which are based on this passage. These are the possible kinds of questions that can be asked. We know that the entire paper is an objective paper. So most of the time you are given multiple choice questions. 4 options are normally given and you need to select the option which is the correct option out of those given 4 options. Now the questions on the literary prose passage may be about the theme of the passage, which is why before you start answering the questions, before you rush into that, make sure you have understood what the passage is speaking about. Second, it could be meaning of a word. A certain word from the passage may be chosen and you may be asked to identify the meaning of that word. Now, even if you don't know the exact meaning of the word, read the sentence where the word has been used and try to understand the contextual meaning of that word. What does it mean in that given passage? What meaning could it possibly have in the context of that given passage? Then questions could also be framed on the details which are given in the passage. For example, descriptions, maybe character of a person, maybe an event is given in detail. So what kind of details are given in the passage? Questions can be framed on that as well. The fourth could be inference based questions. So based on your reading and understanding of the given passage, you need to draw some conclusions or you need to draw some inferences, and that will be the answer to the given question. Now, the passage that we have just seen, there could be a question like this. You are asked to identify the main theme of that passage. So 4 options are given to you. Now, the theme you can identify only if you have read the passage carefully and you have understood it well. So out of the 4 given options, you see what describes the passage best. Next, we come to the comprehension of a poem. Now, here again a poem will be given to you. I have only given a very, a short section of the poem. The prose passage and the poem which are given in the final exam are usually longer than what I have put on the slides here. So again, for a poem, you need to read it carefully, understand the meaning, understand the theme, understand what the poet is speaking about, and then also look at the details which are there, maybe descriptions, maybe the rhyme, maybe meanings of certain things. So try and read it carefully and understand it as best as possible. There could be questions based on your understanding of the passage, and again there could be questions where you need to draw inferences. I have given a sample question here. Which of the following words aptly sums up the writer's description of the river in summer? So it's only if you have understood the description that is given, you have understood the tone of the speaker, you have understood the meaning that the poet is trying to convey, only then you can identify whether that description is realistic or whether it is an illusionary kind of description or whether it is spiritual or imaginative for that matter. Okay, so these 2 comprehension questions, total there are 10 questions. 5 questions are asked on the literary prose passage and 5 questions are asked on the poem that is given to you. In all, they carry 10 marks. So you must pay attention and try to answer them as properly as possible. The next section under the literature part of this paper is the study of literary forms. Under this, we are taking up the first one, that is poetry, and under poetry the various kinds of poems that we can have. The first one I am looking at here is a sonnet. Now, what is a sonnet? A sonnet is a form of fixed verse. So it has 14 lines, the number of lines is fixed, the rhyme scheme is also fixed, and it also follows a certain meter. Now, there are 2 main types of sonnets that we come across. One is the Petrarchan sonnet and the other is the Shakespearean sonnet. Both of them have 14 lines, but difference is in the way those lines are organized. So in the Petrarchan sonnet, the structure is 8 lines plus 6 lines. So those 8 lines together, the first 8 lines together are known as an octave, and they follow a specific rhyme scheme. It is A, B, B, A, B, B, A. And the second set of 6 lines is known as a sestet. Now, in the sestet, there could be varying rhyme schemes that are used. The second major form of the sonnet is the Shakespearean sonnet. Now, the Shakespearean sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains and a couplet at the end. Now, all these quatrains have a rhyme scheme, but they don't follow the same rhyme scheme. Each quatrain has a different rhyme scheme. And the final couplet, the final 2 lines at the end of the sonnet, are again rhymed with each other. So that is a rhymed couplet. So the basic difference that you find between the Petrarchan and the Shakespearean sonnets are the way those 14 lines are structured and organized. The next form of poetry we are looking at is the ode. Now an ode is usually a kind of celebration. It is a kind of appreciation, praise, and it glorifies a person or a thing or maybe even an event. So it has a kind of an exalted language. It has a language where you are praising and appreciating and talking about something or someone in very high terms. Then again, there are three basic forms of the ode. We have the Pindaric ode, the Horatian ode, and the irregular ode. The Pindaric ode has three-part structure, and these three parts are termed as the strophe, the antistrophe, and the epode. Then the Horatian ode has a 2 or 4 line structure. It is divided into stanzas, and each stanza may be either of 2 lines or maybe of 4 lines. Irregular ode, as the name suggests, it is irregular both in terms of verse and also in terms of the structure of the stanza. So these are the 3 main forms of the ode. The next form of poetry that we are looking at is the elegy. Now elegy usually is a lamentation where you express loss of something or someone, and it expresses grief, it expresses sorrow, it expresses loss. That is how the elegy usually begins. What happens after that? Usually this lament or this sorrow, this feeling of loss is followed by praise or appreciation of the person who has been lost. And finally, it resolves towards a kind of consolation or solace. So the poem begins with a feeling of loss, a feeling of sorrow, moves on to appreciation and praise of the person who has been lost, and finally there is a kind of a resolution, coming to terms. So there is some kind of a consolation, some kind of a solace that is drawn, and that is how the elegy ends. The next form of poetry is the ballad. Now here, what is a ballad? It usually narrates a story, and it was often set to music. So it is a poetic form which is actually telling us a story. And this combines the element of a novel or a play with elements of poetry. How does it do it? The element of a novel or a play is that it narrates a story. It has a plot, something happens, it is a narration of events that take place. So it narrates the story, it tells us a story, and it also combines it with meter and with rhyme and rhythm. So this is a ballad. The next form of poetry is the lyric. A lyric expresses emotions and feelings of the speaker. So it usually expresses deep feelings, deep emotions that the speaker is going through. Finally, the last form of the poetry here is dramatic monologue, and this dramatic monologue is written in the form of a speech given by an individual character. And while it is set in a very vivid scene, it tells us it gives us a sense of narration about the speaker's history, and it also gives us a psychological insight into the mind of the speaker. So this is a dramatic monologue, and with this we come to the end of the poetry section. These are some sample questions here. For example, you may be given a question which asks you, odes are distinctive because they what? Do they have 14 lines? Are they built on the terza rhyme scheme? Are they only written about great events or people? Are they now almost extinct? Now we have seen that odes are like a celebration. They are used in exalted form of language and language here. So here the correct answer is the third one, that they are written about great events or people. Then another example here is a poem that maintains both rhyme and meter is what. Now free verse obviously does not follow this. Epic and lyric also don't follow this. It is only the sonnet which is a very fixed form of verse. The number of lines is specified, the meter is specified, and it has a very structured rhyme scheme. Now when you are looking at these different forms of poetry, what should you focus upon? These are the two things that you focus upon. What are the characteristic features of the forms of poetry? In terms of what are the different structures of these different forms, what are the rhyme schemes that they follow, what is the meter that they follow, and if, for example, they have a specific theme. So as we have seen, an elegy is usually a lamentation. An ode is written about a great person or a great event. So some forms of poetry may have certain specific themes about them. Another thing that you need to focus on are some notable poets and their work for each of them. For example, dramatic monologue, if you take that, Robert Browning is a very famous poet who has written multiple dramatic monologues, and dramatic monologue is usually associated only with Robert Browning, although there are others also who have used this form. So make a note of the poets and their work. Now the second section here, when we are looking at the literary forms, is prose, and prose again is divided into drama, fiction and essay. When you are studying drama, these are some of the things that you need to look at. The structure of a play. What is the structure? Now if you look at Aristotle's Poetics, if you look at the classic structures, you will see that usually it has a 5-part structure. It has an exposition, that is it gives a setting to the play. It talks about the characters, it introduces a setting, it introduces a conflict. Then the second part is a rising action. The action that takes place after the conflict is introduced, and it goes on to reach a peak which is known as the climax. Once the action reaches a climax, it begins to fall. Falling action means it is moving towards a resolution. And the final and the fifth stage is the resolution itself. So normally classical plays would follow this 5-part structure, but there are variations also, so all of them may not have this kind of a structure. But you must look into what are the different structures as far as drama is concerned. You should be able to define a tragedy, a comedy and a tragicomedy. So that means you should know the features. How are these different forms of drama? What makes them different from one another? What is a tragedy? What is a comedy? What is a tragicomedy? So what are the elements of a tragedy? So an element of tragedy would be that usually the hero or the protagonist is somebody who holds a very high position. Normally is a person of good character and possibly has a flaw because of which a lot of problems come up in the life of that person. So these are some of the elements that you should be able to understand and you should be able to define when you are studying tragedy, comedy and tragicomedy. Then you should also be able to look at characters. Characters are extremely important in terms of a drama, and characters, some of the common terms you will come across are a flat character or a round character. Now what is a flat character? A character that remains flat from the beginning till the end. That means there is no development in that character. It remains the same, does not change at all. But what is a round character? A character that shapes, changes, progresses as the play moves on. As the plot moves on, we see a change or a progress that happens in the character also. So look at what are the different kinds of characters, what are the characteristics of different kinds of characters. Then another thing to look at is dialogues. What kind of dialogues are there in the play, and this will also be important for you when you are attempting questions based on the list of plays that is given in your syllabus. A lot of times questions are asked in the form of an extract, a dialogue is given to you and you are asked to identify from which play it is or who is the character who has spoken this dialogue. Then you should also look at soliloquy. what kind of a dialogue is it? Is it a dialogue or is it a monologue? Is it spoken by one person? To whom does that person speak? What is the purpose of a soliloquy in terms of a play? How is it central to the structure or to the theme of the play? So you should look at what a soliloquy is, and you should also be able to understand what is the importance of soliloquies in terms of the play, the whole structure of a play. The second kind of prose form that we are looking at is fiction. Now under this there are 4 things to note: point of view, setting or atmosphere, style, and technique of narration. So very briefly put, point of view, when you are reading a fiction, a novel or any other fiction form, from whose point of view is the story narrated? Is it the point of view of the writer? Is it the point of view of the speaker? Is it the point of view of some other character in the story? So from whose perspective are we listening to that story? Okay, that is the point of view in the fiction. Then what kind of a setting is that story set in? What is the environment that the writer has created in which the entire action takes place? That is the setting or the atmosphere. In what style is it written? What is the technique of narration? What kind of a narrator do we have here? Is it a narrator who knows everything, a narrator who knows the past, who knows the present, and who also knows what is going to happen in the future? Or is it a narrator who is like the reader, gets to know things as they unfold in the story? So do we have an omniscient narrator here? So what kind of technique of narration is used? Some novels may use a flashback kind of technique. There could be novels which are very linear and follow very chronological pace. Then there may be novels and fiction, works of fiction, which keep moving backwards and forward. So what is the technique of narration and what kind of a narrator do we have for the fiction piece that we are reading? And the last form here is the essay. Again, you should know how an essay is different from other prose like fiction, etc. And you should also maybe read something about the periodical essays, etc. These are some sample questions here. These are some sample questions that I have taken up here. A flat character is a fictional character who, what? Is the character flexible and grows? Does not grow and often repeats the same words? Does unpredictable things? Lives on a flat surface. Now, as I have already told you, a flat character is one who does not grow at all and remains the same throughout from the beginning till the end of the story. So obviously here option number 2 is the correct option. There is another one here which talks about tragedy, definition as given by Aristotle, and which of these options is not a feature of tragedy as defined by Aristotle. Now the last section of our syllabus, it says English literature from 1798 to 1900, with special reference to certain poets and certain writers are mentioned here. Now when you look at this period from 1798 to 1900, broadly speaking, it covers 2 ages in the history of English literature. These are the age of Wordsworth, which is from 1798 to 1832, and the other one is the age of Tennyson, which is from 1832 to 1887. Now when you look at the literature of this period, again I am suggesting to you that you focus on 2 major things. What are the characteristic features of the prose or poetry of that age? Secondly, what is the literary style and works of the writers which are mentioned there? So you should know the characteristic features of the age, the writing of that age, and you should also know the major writers of that age, their literary style, and also their important work. This is a sample actually I have given you, a kind of a table that you can form for yourself, and it will help you in remembering details. So this the title given here is the age of Wordsworth. We have 3 columns here. The first one talks about verse, and the titles are given and the year in which it was published. Then we also have a section on prose. So it mentions the titles and the year of publication. And again, the last one, the third one that you see is the fiction or the prose, the novels that are written in that period. These are some sample questions here that you can see. And again, as you see, I have given you multiple choice questions here. So these are based on your reading of literature of this period. Now, the last part here, the syllabus clearly says that candidates are expected to have a thorough knowledge of the above mentioned poets, essayists, novelists and dramatists and their respective works mentioned at the level that is expected of a student of literature. So this is a big task, 18 poems, 14 prose and 6 plays, but you must read all of them. You must have knowledge about them, because the previous year's questions, a question has been framed on almost each one of them. It may be in the form of what detail is mentioned in the poem or what is not mentioned. It may be in the form of a term that is used. It may be in the form of the theme of a piece of literature. It may be a question on characters. It may also be a question on, it could also be about a dialogue which is given and you're asked to identify which character actually says that in the play. So with this we come to the end of this session on the literature part, the B part, and please keep all the tips in mind, and very good luck to all of you. I hope you will all do well. Thank you.
Good luck to you all.